In the 50s, over 10% of the Soviet population had at some point been in the gulags or are currently in the gulags.
I don't think communists let you know those things. My husband and I were in the Soviet Union in the 1988-89 academic year, and that's early Gorbachev before everything totally falls apart and there's no food. So there wasn't much food, but there was some food. It was just as the Russians were suddenly being able to read in a fairly free press about the things that had happened, and they were appalled about what had gone on under Stalin, and they just hadn't realized all of it.
One of the reasons that socialism was appealing to these decolonizing countries was because in the preceding decades, from the 20s to 40s, the Soviet Union actually had pretty good growth rates. In those 20 years, their GDP went from 8% to 18% of world production. Was that just catch-up growth?
There was tremendous rebuilding after World War II. There's another piece, is it was so weird when we were in Russia in 88, 89, anything that was sold at the markets that came from somewhere else, they would mark it importnaya, means imported. So the idea, and I remember thinking, this is really weird because normally you would say it's, I don't know, Hungarian this and that or whatever. And I thought, ooh, this means that anything from somewhere else is better than what we got. That it's a really bad sign. And they had like a what I would call a donut empire. Normally, when you think of an empire, Mother Central is the most developed part, and then there's the periphery where all the natural resources are taken away. That it was an inverted empire. Russia is the donut. The rich places were places like Czechoslovakia, and Poland had been much richer places. And so the Russians are like serf owners are sucking in all the wealth from these places. And I think that's another reason why the shattering of the Soviet Union, when they lost all of their enserfed Eastern Europe, why it was such a mess for Russia. They did not realize, and they still don't realize, the degree to which they were living off the wealth produced in the the European portions of Russia that since became independent.
Who was the last Soviet leader who like truly believed in
But
communism?
Gorbachev was a true believer. He did not believe it was possible to take a U-turn on the road to communism, so that when he was doing his reforms, it was to improve communism, make it better. So he absolutely believed in it.
You started your career in Soviet studies, and you're trying to figure out like what's going on in the Kremlin all the time. What is it? What is the key to figuring out criminology? What is the key to figuring out what's happening in the Politburo?
Well, what I did for my uh, doctoral dissertation, so I wrote a history of the the Russo-Chinese border when it was figured out, which is between 1858 and 1924. This is when all this territory went. And what I did is, so most of this isn't Soviet, right? It's 17 to 24 is the Soviet part. But you go to archives in Russia, you see what they'll let you see. You go to, and this is when you could go to those archives. They're closed now. And I went to Beijing, saw the archives you were allowed to see. And then in Nanjing, there were some other ones there. And then in Taiwan, the ones they would allow you to see. And then Japan, the ones they would allow you to see. And they're all lying about different things or covering up different things. So it's a jigsaw puzzle. You sort of put it together that way. So that was how I did it. And also for the whole Kremlinology is pay attention to what dictators say. Because they've got to communicate at some level to their own populations. They quite often tell you exactly what they want to do, and you think, that's insane. Who would do that? Well, hello, hello, right?